a real big positive of why Denver is an awesome place to live, and that's the investment that's happening right now into the city. And as I alluded to in my intro, the Denver Broncos just announced this past week that they finally have a new location for the Denver Broncos football stadium. So this new location for the stadium is going to be in Barnham Yard. And this is an area that, as I've grown up here, have honestly never even really knew it existed other than just the location of where it is. But, that really doesn't have right now much going for it when it comes to reputation or just other amenities and things to do in this Barnham Yard neighborhood. Barnham Yard is just slightly to the south of where the current stadium is located, and I am really glad that they chose this location. When they were first throwing around different ideas for where the stadium might be, they were also talking about a lot of areas north, really close to the Gaylord Hotel, which is just basically right at the Denver International Airport. And one of the reasons why I did not like that area as much is just because it is so far away from everything else that Denver offers. Anybody that currently lives in downtown Denver or any of the surrounding neighborhoods, I used to live in Sloan Lake, which is just slightly to the west of downtown Denver. In fact, the Denver Broncos current stadium is only about a 5-minute walk from my house. And I think so many other people in Denver love that about the stadium, having a really good walkability feature and having it benefit all the other businesses, restaurants, bars, just all of that kind of stuff around the stadium. The good news is where they chose to put it here in Barnham Yard, it's still very close, so I think there's going to be a lot of the same traffic, the same pull that exists currently with where it is now with this new stadium. But the biggest, I think, exciting aspect of this is they have announced it's going to be a retractable dome on the stadium. And what that means is, it's kind of a good and bad to this. The good is that usually means that we'll now be a contender to have the Super Bowl here sometime in the future. So how cool would that be to finally have a Super Bowl here in Denver, Colorado? I will, though, push back and say the one negative, I think, of having a dome on the stadium is, Denver Broncos, the fans as well as the players, we're used to the cold, harsh weather that we have here in the winter months in Colorado. And I think in some ways that could be an advantage, especially when we're playing some of our division teams like San Diego or the Los Angeles Chargers. They're not used to that as much. So I think that does give an upper hand to the home team, which unfortunately will no longer really play as much of a factor once this new stadium gets built. But really excited, though, just to share that news with you guys. And this is just a long-winded way of explaining one reason why I think this is such a great positive of living in Denver is all of this investment back into the community. One last thing about the Denver Broncos Stadium that I also think is really cool. So as you may or may not know, the Broncos are owned by the Penner Walton family. So the family that owns Walmart. As you can imagine, very, very wealthy. In fact, we're the wealthiest ownership of any team in the entire country. And with that, one benefit is that actually they're paying for the stadium completely on their own. They're not asking for anything from the city of Denver. On average, a lot of the other big stadiums that have recently been built around the country, there's about a $700 to $800 million chip in that the city itself has to put in to help pay for the stadium. We're not doing that here. So it's just nice to know that when this new stadium is built, it's not going to be affecting the pocketbooks of any Denver residents in that surrounding area. So really cool to see.